Take one.
In New York City is where we really started our hot yoga journey, and I noticed a sign on the street that said 30 days of yoga for $30, and living in New York City, you just take advantage of any kind of deal like that. Walked in with no clue of what to expect, put myself in the front row because, hey, you know, I'm an athlete, I know what to do. I totally embarrassed myself. It was the most awful experience ever. The teacher was so intimidating. He made me move to the back row, and it was just one of those things where I never thought I would come back, but I'm too cheap, and so I said, I'm gonna make the most of my $30, ended up coming back, and within just a few classes, I quickly realized I would be doing this for the rest of my life. I had never felt better. I stopped doing all the high intensity things and started doing more yoga, and just noticed that physically, I felt like I could move with more ease. I felt detoxed and cleansed, re-energized, but most importantly, had this mental clarity that I had never experienced by just being on the elliptical.
I was dragged into the $30 Groupon or whatever it was as well. However, I was ready to let it go after the first class, but I wanted to spend more time with her, so I did it. And accordingly, I think I also, just so that people are very clear, I threw up in my second class. It was awful. It was just really, it was a 90-minute class. And the studio was fine. It was like carpeted. People laughed at me, you know, it was awful, but it was fine. I made it through. The third class, the fourth class, you know, with the stresses of school and everything else, it was something that really just ended up making a difference. All the stuff that we say to you know, our students here is stuff that we've experienced ourselves, and we wouldn't bring it forward if it didn't impact our lives as much as it did. And that's kind of what got us started on the journey towards hot yoga. From there, we got engaged, we got married after school, and
And I remember moving back to Indianapolis, and there was no hot yoga studio here, and how hot yoga gives you access to like this higher version of yourself. And I was missing that when I came back to Indianapolis. Well, we actually ended up moving to Europe just a few months later, and I was pregnant with Maya, our firstborn, and she, as soon as she popped out, literally, I was on the sofa and probably so sleep deprived and just breastfeeding. Ash just casually brought up, hey, you're on maternity leave, you got some time off from work, you should go do yoga teacher training. And I looked at him, I was like, you gotta be kidding me, what are you talking about? And it was that nudge that I needed to actually explore what could be possible. And so Maya at the time was about 5 months. I took her, we headed back to the United States, immersed ourselves in yoga teacher training. We had my parents, the in-laws, it was a whole family taking care of the baby as I pursued the yoga teacher training. I ended up going back to Europe, fell in love with teaching at the studios there. We traveled all around the world taking and teaching classes.
We've had a chance to practice original hot yoga in Seoul, in Korea, Latvia, Turkey, all different parts of Europe, Amsterdam.
Southeast Asia, yeah.
And what the best thing about it was so consistent. So no matter where you end up around the world, even if you don't understand the language, you understand the yoga. And that's the language that was so universal, and it works.
When we received the phone call to move back to Indianapolis, there was really no doubt in our mind at that point that our purpose was to share this practice and bring it back to Indianapolis.
I do. It was with Katie. It was a HIIT class, and I remember I made it exactly 43 minutes before I crawled out into the hallway, and she was dragging me back in by my feet. But now it's still something we joke about and have fun with, but in a way, it was kind of like a hallmark moment because I can always look back on that, and now I can actually, you know, I still take my breaks, but I can get through a class without crawling out in the hallway and her chasing me anymore.
For my classes, I always want my classes to be fun, of course. That's my #1 goal, have fun. I always want to have an awesome playlist. I want everyone to be supportive of each other, but of course, I want to give them an awesome workout as well. So you expect to be challenged, expect to have fun, expect to get a great workout in.
3 years ago, I had a stroke, so I took 2.5 years off, and Hey Jen reached out to me, and I never thought I could do it again, Well, for 8 weeks now, I've been doing it very regularly, and I've seen major improvements, just, you know, neurally and mentally and everything else. So it's really been a lifesaver.
So after I started practicing at the hot room, I felt more confident in myself and I felt better mentally. There was more clarity. I felt inspired each and every time I would take a class. I felt stronger, and that's just something that I had never felt and other fitness methods weren't doing for me.
Your endurance, your strength, you really kind of learn how to marry yourself to your breath, which is like a hidden benefit you really don't expect until you get used to doing that. But then you have the mental benefit as well of just powering through things, you know, just learning how to endure. And even my sleep has been aided by it. And I know for athletes, sleep is such a crucial thing. So I think once they get into a habit of doing it and getting into a practice of doing it and making it part of their life, some of those effects will really come to the surface.
I play tournament golf, and so I'm looking for a combination of flexibility, obviously, and strength, and this is the best combination of both.
What changes have you experienced by practicing consistently?
Definitely more flexibility, and I also am finding that my patience level for things that used to maybe bother and frustrate me is much less. So I'd say those two things, you know, primarily are the two that stick out the most.
Since my May Day incident, I've had the opportunity of practicing at the fire department some different fire drills, putting myself in a very similar position where I was in intense heat. And in that moment, I was able to focus in on my breath, the moment, and working through my panic to keep in mind my training and accomplish the job that I had to do. So that mental focus, that mental toughness is so imperative to my job, and the hot room has played a pivotal role in helping me achieve that.
My name is Jane Holler. I am 73 years old, and I'm a student at the hot room.
So if you're talking to a friend, they're 70, and they say, oh, no, I'm too old for that.
I don't know, that's what everybody says. I mean, I'm talking go back to 50, to get somebody 50 to try to start. It's like they don't want to, they're afraid of it. There's nothing to be afraid of. Do what you can do. You don't have to come in here and be a rock star the first class, like I certainly wasn't. I was terrible, but I knew I needed it. And I knew it was going to make me better, a better person. You know, I'm just better at work, everywhere. I get up in the morning, I get up and I want to do stuff, you know? And I know this is why.